Hey everyone, Dr. Chris here, coming at you from Align Life headquarters here in Asheville, North Carolina. I am super excited to introduce today's guest. As you know, we love to highlight community members and people that are doing great things in the community. So here is Jamie Lee Nix.
Hello, how are you?
So Jamie, I think when we were talking on the phone the other day, the question I'd like to ask everybody is what brought you to Asheville?
Let's see, it was a few years ago. I'm originally from New York, and I have a job where I travel for work. So really I could have moved anywhere I wanted. I took a road trip. Hadn't heard of Asheville before I moved here and before the road trip, and then thought it was a pretty cool city. After the road trip I thought, out of all the places I've seen, which ones are the most, interesting to me. Did some research, and everywhere I looked, more and more Asheville kind of hit all those highlights for me. It has a lot to offer, and it's kind of my perfect place. So I made the move, and I'm happy I did, and that's how I ended up in Asheville.
Well, welcome to Asheville. As you all know, Asheville's known as a healthy and healing community, and we've had a disruption to that. What are some of your thoughts on the health of our community out there?
Asheville's an interesting place because I think people are actually really open-minded, environmentally oriented, health-oriented more than some other places, which I am as well, so that was one of the draws to Asheville for me. But there are issues that are global, international, national issues that wherever you go you're going to have to deal with them. But I also feel like Asheville is a great place to address those things and to raise awareness in the community about some of these issues.
I think you're spot on, and that's why you and I are sit here. We kind of connected, Jamie and myself and my wife Heather, through a special interest group about wireless technology, and that's really why we're sitting here with Jamie. That's her specialty, so we want to hear a little bit more about her story through that.
So I guess the question is, actually one question is, are we allowed to say the taboo phrase 5 and the 7th letter of the alphabet?
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
Because I've realized that there's some sites, some people trying to raise awareness about the issue of 5G, and they're being censored online on different social platforms, and so that's a concern that I need to worry about now, which I'm a little, it's something that you think in the United States of America you shouldn't be having to worry about freedom of speech and having open discussion with people about issues that concern us. So I got into this, let's call it organization, local organization, originally from smart meters.
Yeah, we could talk about it, because guess what happened? The phone company, electric company just came and put a smart meter on my house that's wireless, and the meter's right outside where my baby daughter's head sleeps, and I had to call them and they wouldn't take it off unless I paid them or had a doctor's note, and I didn't ask for it to be put on. Right.
So this is moving here a couple of years ago. I was aware of the smart meter issue about 10 years ago when they first started introducing them, and I guess it's the different newsletters I subscribe to or websites I look at. I was educated about it and knew it was something that I didn't want on my house. So I took a couple of steps to maybe block it from being put on, but you really don't know, because one day you come home and it's on and you realize, how long has it been there? I don't know how it got there. But there was an article in the Mountain Express that there were some local activists who went to the North Carolina Utilities Commission and were protesting smart meters, and they were trying to block them from being put on their homes, and the Duke Energy shut off their power, so they were without power for a while, and eventually they had to negotiate and concede and have a modified meter put on their homes. But this article got in the newspaper, and that's how I read about it, and I was surprised that they even had this issue showcased in a local newspaper and a mainstream thing. And they also had a number on the bottom that said, if you want to opt out, here's the phone number. And I said, great, I'm going to call that number and opt out. And then tried to look into what else I can do to prevent this from happening. So the In Power movement was something I discovered after, sorry.
No, you're good.
Going on too long. So through research on smart meters, I found a documentary called Take Back Your Power, which I suggest to everyone to watch that. It really goes in deep about the smart meter issue. And then after that, it tells you steps you can take on a larger level to prevent a smart meter being put on your house, called the notice of liability, where you can hold those elected officials, those people in power who made those decisions to force that technology on your home. It's a way to counteract what feels like a powerless position, to take that power back and keep them from violating your personal rights and sovereignty. So I suggest to look at the Empower movement and to learn more about that as well. And then that led me into the 5G movement and the 5G group, because we're talking about electromagnetic frequencies and exposure from electromagnetic radiation. And I was so glad to find that I wasn't alone in going through this process on my own, but there's a whole group that was formed last spring called Stop 5G Asheville. And they have a Facebook group page. You can go on there where they show you events and discussions, and you could ask questions there.
So if I'm hearing everything that you're saying right, you kind of got engaged with the smart meters, coming into your awareness. Saw that was actually going on in Asheville. You were surprised, so you decided to take some action and realized that you weren't the only one that didn't really take too much liking, and then you dug a little deeper, and there's been a change. I don't know if people are really aware of the differences in cell phone technologies going out there. I know we talked about the 5G, but where did we go from, and what is the change that's going on there?
Right, so a lot of the people who are aware of this 5G issue and smart meter issues, it's because they became aware of it because when smart meters were put on their homes, they experienced some debilitating health issues, which might include, there's a whole slew of things. The way your body reacts to these frequencies could be different for everyone because it affects you on the cellular level, but how your body responds and your weaknesses and your immune system all would determine what symptoms might show up for you. So something like headaches or maybe inflammation, we're talking about chronic inflammation, arthritis, achy joints, symptoms that you might be put on an anti-inflammatory, or they say it's arthritis, might actually be inflammation caused from an abundance of frequencies. So also, what other health issues?
Well, I was surprised to see in our practice, we more of a brain on spine clinic here, and people that have a brain deficiency that might have something neurologically related or behavioral related are super sensitive to that. So that's how I became aware of it.
Yeah, so as people start to develop health issues, they question why. They might be told that it's all in their head, or that we don't know what causes it, take these drugs that might block it or stop it from happening. People who are lucky enough to find the answer that this might be a contributing factor and eliminate it from their homes and their environment, and have greatly improved, realized they put the connection together and said, this is something that people need to know about. Why isn't this more mainstream? But there is a whole slew of science that show health effects. I forget what it is, but a Journal of Environmental Medicine put out an article saying, here's electromagnetic hypersensitivity, EHS, or also more commonly people want to use the word EMS because electromagnetic sensitivity. They don't want to say, oh, there's something wrong with you, you're hypersensitive, that's why you're having these problems, when it's really a tolerance issue, just like chemical sensitivity, where after in your environment, sure, there's that one weirdo who has to have tinfoil all over the house because it does block the frequencies, who's this person, but as they say right now, about 10% of people have some type of electromagnetic hypersensitivity, but as many as 30% of the population have symptoms that they don't know what's causing it, that could be contributing to it. So if we're talking about holistic health and contributing factors, it's not just, diet's important, exercise is important, your air quality which is important, which includes your, the radiation is an air pollutant. So we need to put that in check too and make sure that's not overwhelming us. Chemical sensitivities. So once all these things are addressed, people's health improves, they know that it's a factor.
I would agree, being a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, you realize that not everybody's body's the same, and some people can swim in a cesspool and not have anything, and some people could live a totally healthy life and get sick very easily. So I think that the electrical sensitivities make up a big difference of how their bodies adapt to things. What are some things that people should know moving forward, or you mentioned the word environment before. I always think of our internal environment and our external environment. I think both of those combined is kind of lead into the health crisis we're having right now. What are some things people should know about how to mitigate what's going on?
Well, as far as the electromagnetic radiation, there's steps that you can take to help mitigate the exposure in your home. So I think you mentioned you've done some things in your own home. Hardwiring the connections. So if you don't need Wi-Fi all the time on all your devices, if you can hardwire those computers, have your cell phone on airplane mode as often as possible. Or when you don't need to use it, or let's say you can't use it, you're in a library or something, or turn it off if you can. Having those laptops and the tablets that people have on their laps are meant to be used on a table. If you look at the cell phone manual themselves, they say they're designed to be used at, I think, half an inch or something from your body. They're told that it's not supposed to be used against your body, because then it goes over the level of safety that it's designed to be used at. So how many people use these devices off your body?
I think there's actually in the app in the iPhone, there's a disclaimer statement 10 buttons in that explains just that. So I know in our home we made it a point to have everything hardwired. We did remove the smart meter. Is there any protection devices or anything you can do to say your neighbors aren't complying?
There is shielding you can do on the outside of your home. There's a site called lessemf.com, which has a whole bunch of shielding devices too. Now, if we're talking, I guess, on a few levels, there's the physical level, your own body. There's shielding you can do. There's devices that people wear, amulets, crystals, that because we're dealing with frequencies here, there's certain things that either can block a frequency, like a metal plate or something like that, or you can, these other devices use other frequencies, like the way crystals use frequency, or whether they're programmed or balanced or charged with some type of frequency to counteract the negative frequency, so your body isn't experiencing DNA damage like you would being exposed.
I've heard about that. A lot of the papers, there's no shortage of research. There's over about 10,000 papers out there, research of how the 5G technology, the difference of the frequency, actually alters your DNA.
Right. And I was going to say that with the smart meter too, they did studies on standing in front of it for just 1 minute or 2 minutes at a time, how your blood cells are actually altered and distorted just for a minute. Now, after 15 minutes, it can repair itself, but what if you're exposed to a frequency all day long, every day? So what kind of chronic, cumulative effect is it having on your body? It's a concern. So there's a few things which, I could say, look into yourself. These pages have science backing it up, but I don't want to, tell you to do anything. It's on your own to decide if this would work for you. But they made a few devices, for example, for 5G. This bracelet here is 5G blocker. It's made of like tourmaline and a few different magnetic things, negative ions put together. So it's from a site called alphabiocentric.com, and it's called 5G blocker bracelet. I bought it, I wear it, it was affordable enough. You do need to go through a healthcare practitioner to get it, but it just makes me feel more comfortable that I have something that I'm mitigating personally. There's another thing called a 5G BioShield, which is actually like a USB drive. I don't know if you have seen a documentary called 5G Apocalypse, put together from Sasha Stone. What's the word?
Well, 5G Apocalypse is a pretty scary title, but I'm sure it sounds pretty informative if you're talking and bringing it up.
It was the first big documentary that was put together on 5G, so it's really informative and does give you a full background. It's not all as scary as it sounds. Yeah, sure, it's scary, but it gives you a good background on the issue of 5G. But he's endorsed, that's the word I was saying.
Gotcha.
He endorsed the 5G BioShield device. And then somebody else recommends, I think it's pronounced Qi Shield, but it's QI Shield. And that's kind of a device that you can have in your home that blocks frequencies in your home.
Gotcha. So sounds to me that there's personal devices. I know here I carry around some orgonite That definitely helps to change that. I know it's really hard for, like you said, people at work that are taking a bath in the Wi-Fi, even moms. You know, we have a young baby at home, and it's hard for my wife to, you know, always do things in the best way.
Mm-hmm. And even talking about on your cell phone, there's stuff like it's almost like a decal, a sticker you can put on a website. It's called Altera.com, which has these also protection type devices you can put on your computer that kind of counteracts the frequency coming off of them. Use your own discretion when using them, but I've used them, and it can't hurt.
So we could we can make some changes in and outside of the house, and we can make some changes in and outside of our bodies. What would the impact be if a group of people got together and made these changes?
I think the number one thing is awareness and education. So all people really know about 5G is what they hear on the massive amount of marketing that's out there. Every commercial, you know, they do a lot of advertising. They're the number one sponsor and donor for a lot of organizations and media. So sure, if you just watch what you see out there, it's 5G, faster, better, gotta get it. It's a race, you know. It's the next thing. Let's do it. You know, everybody get on board. Can't wait to have it. But it doesn't give you a whole lot of information. One thing is a Senate hearing, February 2019. The telecom industry had to admit that they did no safety testing and planned on doing no safety testing for 5G. Now, this is something that they're launching tens of thousands of satellites to be used and surrounding the Earth. 10,000 small cells in, you know, cities that need to be used for this technology to work. And the problem what my group has is it's not just about a cell phone that you could shut off or protect your own home. In order for 5G to work, they need to put these small cell towers, which, you know, it's misleading that they're smaller, but because the frequencies don't go as far, they need to be like every 200 or 400 yards in a neighborhood or throughout a city. So you're surrounded, and people who are already electromagnetic sensitive cannot escape from the exposure to these frequencies. So this becomes a Americans for Disabilities Act issue, because people cannot go into an office building to work because they can't be exposed. Some people, it creates a EMF refugee situation where people who do have homes can't live in those homes because the levels are too high and they can't control them. So they're driving out to the woods at night to sleep, because that's when your body repairs itself the most, is that sleep cycle. So you need a very clean environment when you sleep so you can repair from the daily damage. And it's very debilitating, and these are the people who are the canary in the coal mine who are saying, you know, if we're going to increase this exposure, we're going to have more and more people who are like this, and then what kind of population are we going to have? Sick and weak and not able to do anything about it.
So I think you bring up a good point with the sleep. You know, we do a lot of work here with sleep disordered breathing for people, and we have a lot of questions that we ask them, and one of them is like, what is your bedroom like? And I don't know, most people don't know this, but if you're working on your wireless laptop in bed at night, your brain is going to actually associate that with work, and it's going to make it harder to sleep. And I was surprised to find out how many people actually have a Bluetooth bed. I didn't even know that they make a wireless bed. Do you know?
Well, some other scary things that they were coming out with is basically wireless everything, like a sensor for your baby's diaper, where it could tell you when the baby needs to be changed. So the push for technology, because of the profitability, is like smart devices, everything. The reason why they also need 5G is because the Internet of Things, where basically you have the smart fridge, the smart toaster, all these things are interconnected, but that's increasing your exposure with every device you have. What was your
Nope, I just think my point was we could live a more natural life. And
you're saying a Bluetooth bed, or people being exposed at night?
You know, you mentioned earlier having the phone on airplane mode and maybe having electronic devices outside of the bed so we can get a good night's sleep and repair.
So one thing is the blue light. So these devices emit blue light, which throughout the electromagnetic spectrum, there are certain things. One very important thing is the pineal gland and melatonin production, and those different frequencies throughout the day dictate what type of biological processes, the hormones in our body that get released that help our body function naturally. So we have problems like sleep problems, anxiety, hormonal problems, thyroid, like where does it not connect? It affects everything on some level. So when you go to sleep, normally late in the day you get that yellow-red light at sunset, but if we're always looking at blue light, especially before you go to bed, that blue light activates daylight in time to wake up and be active. So why are we having trouble sleeping? Because we're stimulating ourselves with that blue light before bed. So there are also glasses that people wear where you're blocking the blue light, blue blockers they're called.
Okay.
Yes, it's very important, maybe a couple hours before bedtime, to shut off that stuff to help your mind quiet down. Other things you reminded me before at bed, one's very important to shut off all the Wi-Fi in your house when you sleep would be great. I have a timer and I stay up late, but then my partner comes in early, so really it's off from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. at least. So we're getting some hours where it's completely shut off. It's easy just to put a timer on your Wi-Fi and have that just shut off automatically. Some people have certain breakers where they shut off all the power in their house at night, if they're more sensitive or if you want to do that. But definitely having the phone away out of the bedroom, not having the Wi-Fi router close to your bedroom where you sleep, or having it as far away from where normal activity is throughout the day also would be helpful.
So if some people found some of this information helpful, whether it be from the health aspect or things that they wanted to make changes and they need some references, what are some of the things they can look up and find out?
There's a lot of resources. One great site is environmentalhealthtrust.org. They have information on science. There's other organizational websites, citizens45gawareness.org, and they're based out of New York actually, but they have really good information and also what steps you can take to protect yourself or mitigate, or what you can do to raise awareness, writing letters to local officials, petitions, flyers that you can put out around the neighborhood. So I think the more that people speak to others about it, share certain documentaries. There's a 20-minute documentary that kind of encompasses a lot of stuff, 5G Beware, the 5G apocalypse, which I mentioned, which was a big one. There's a new one now that came out by a citizen journalist called Derek Bowes. Should I take this?
Okay.
Called the 5G Trojan Horse, and the great documentary about smart meters is Take Back Your Power. Josh Del Sol put that together, and also the movement, the Empower movement, talking about what steps can we take as a community once we get enough people who are kind of on the same page, educated, and we want to take action. The Empower movement is something where people can say, this is what we want for our communities, this is what our expectations are for our health and our environment in the places we live. There's another great movement called communityrights.us, and they have been really successful at places where corporations have come in and forced certain things on communities that they didn't want, like fracking or pesticides, polluting people's water. There are strategies to go around the powers that be, the proper channels. We're appealing to our local officials, petitions, all the stuff that, or our regulatory agencies which aren't doing their jobs. We find, you try everything, you're banging your head against the wall. Well, it's because the system is designed in a certain hierarchical way to keep people from really having the power to design what they want. So communityrights.us, I would say check that out. And when we're ready to make a movement, call me.
That's right. Well, that is a wealth of information, Jamie. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story, giving people some resources. I know there's a lot of people out there that are having these type of symptoms, but their voice isn't heard, and they're being told there's nothing wrong with them. We have a few here in the practice, and thank you for helping us create awareness so that people can make the best decisions, not only for their health, but for the community in Asheville as a whole, because I think we have a pretty special place here, and I would like to bring that to my children to flourish. What we really would like is to hear your questions, your concerns, your comments, so we can keep this dialogue open, and I think that will get this awareness out there to everyone. Any closing thoughts, Jamie?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, like I said, is talk about it, research, share with others. The more people know about this, the less it can be ignored. So we can do this together.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
You too.